scenario. As one EU official put it to me, the sequencing makes no sense here, because if Boris Johnson were to win that election and have a Conservative majority in the parliament, his idea is he would come here to Brussels and say, look, my new parliament has cancelled what the old parliament did. Now no deal is back on the table. Take that backstop arrangement out, or I will pull the trigger on this and we will go into no deal. The problem is that within 2 days, it won't really be clear whether all of his Conservative MPs would indeed vote to take that no deal prevention legislation off the table. The alternative scenario, if Jeremy Corbyn's Labour were to win the election, the idea is that Jeremy Corbyn would come here to Brussels and ask for an extension. But what is he asking an extension for? The EU has said that it would only grant an extension in the event of a general election or a second referendum, essentially. Something material has to change. Now, Corbyn has promised a second referendum, but it's unclear whether all his Labour MPs would support that, and it probably won't be clear within just 2 days. And of course, a general election will have just happened, so he can't call another one. So really, the EU agrees with the opposition's assessment that an election should take place after October 31st, after a request for an extension.
Now, the opposition, of course, have pointed out that the PM has really put zero new proposals to replace Theresa May's withdrawal deal. I mean, is Boris Johnson really overselling his hand, because he's promising that he can come back from Brussels with something new on the table?
Yeah, this has really perplexed EU officials, because here in Brussels there is absolutely no sign of any real good faith negotiation. Yesterday, David Frost, Johnson's new Brexit negotiator, came here to Brussels, but he didn't even meet with Michel Barnier. Instead, Barnier spent the day meeting with the Brexit Steering Committee, making preparations for No Deal Brexit. Really, from the EU side, they say they've heard no new ideas from Johnson about what could replace that backstop arrangement, which the EU still insists is absolutely essential. And so there's increasing suspicion here in Brussels that what Johnson is doing is just trying to run out the clock, pretending to have negotiations, but really he just wants to get to that summit on the 17th of October and say, look, we had negotiations and nothing worked. Of course, they would say negotiations didn't really happen. And I have permission to have a no deal. I'm going to have a no deal unless you drop that backstop. The idea is that he would intimidate the EU into dropping the backstop and agreeing to a deal to avert the potential chaos of no deal. The problem is really the going wisdom here in Brussels is that the EU would rather choose no deal, which will, economists say, affect the UK much more than the EU, than to drop that backstop. Johnson seems to think that they would lose their nerve at the last minute, but it's hard to envision that happening. It's a risky gambit on his part, and that's exactly what the current parliament wants to avoid. They're saying that this is an irresponsible strategy to have no deal Brexit on the table as a threat, and they want to take it off the table.
Dave Keating there. Dave Keating, thank you very much. Dave Keating reporting to us there from Brussels. Well, let's move on.